And again, we're just waiting for folks to file in from the Zoom waiting room into our event this afternoon, and we'll be getting started in just a couple of moments. All right, well, I think we'll get started. I know there are still some people coming in via Zoom, but we might as well get started with this afternoon's event. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bill Maurer. I'm the Dean of the School of Social Sciences at the University of California at Irvine, which is right behind me, but I'm not there. That's my virtual background. And I'd like to welcome you to this event, which is the 7th in our Social Sciences Zeries, a series of talks that we've been doing since the pandemic began and the stay-at-home orders in California were issued, to really exemplify the range and breadth of research and teaching activity in the social and behavioral sciences and how it can help us address and understand the pandemic and its ramifying social, economic, and political effects. We've had talks so far this quarter from people in cognitive sciences talking about sleep, to people in political science talking about political polarization. We've had input from the policy fields on policy responses, from anthropology on the situation around social media and in China during the pandemic, and from logic and the philosophy of science looking at mis and disinformation during this pandemic. And today we have Professor Tom Boellstorff from the Department of Anthropology, who's going to be doing something a little bit different. He's going to be talking about a class that he's been teaching this quarter from inside the virtual world Second Life, which is what you see on the screen before you. The talk is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Social Sciences website later. And we also have a different format here as well, because we're in Zoom, some of us, and others of us are in Second Life. So to assist in today's activities, given that we have, our virtual world inside of our own virtual space, we have a guest moderator. And the moderator is Beth O'Connell, who in Second Life is Beth Ghostravin. She is a middle school librarian on the East Coast who's been facilitating information literacy and inspiring immersion in stories in whatever format they can be made available since 1998. In 2012, Beth began using the virtual world of Second Life to network with other educators and librarians. She's also in OpenSim Worlds and in Minecraft. She's the owner of Ghost Raven Professional Attire, which is classic clothing for educators in Second Life. She's the communications chair for the Virtual World's Best Practices in Education Conference, transcript editor for the Virtual World's Education Roundtable, among other positions. Now, Beth will introduce Professor Boellstorff in a moment, and I just want to say for those of you in Zoom, if you'd like to post a question, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and I'll try to keep up with those. For those of you in Second Life, please ask your question from within Second Life, again, using text. And also, this is very much an experiment because we've never done this kind of thing before, broadcasting an event over Zoom that's also in Second Life. You're going to hear lots of noises, like we can hear the clickety-clack of typing whenever someone in Second Life is typing. There's little bells and things going off that I don't know what they mean. Things might get a little laggy. We'll see what kind of technological issues arise as we proceed. But just thank you all in advance for being here and for your patience as we roll out today's event. So with that, Beth, I'll turn it over to you to introduce Tom.
I'm speaking in Second Life. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me mute Zoom for a minute. Maybe I can't. I'll just have to deal with this thing. So Tom Boellstorff is professor in the Department of Anthropology at the University of California, Irvine, a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. He is the author of several books, my favorites of which are Coming of Age in Second Life and Ethnography in Virtual Worlds, a Handbook of Methods. both from Princeton University Press. From 2015 to 2018, he conducted research on disability in virtual worlds with support from the National Science Foundation, collaborating with Donna Davis from the University of Oregon. In addition to several publications, that research resulted in the documentary film, Our Digital Selves, directed by Bernard Drax. There's a link to it. I'll put that in chat in Zoom too. The research and film involved many of my friends from the virtual ability community in Second Life. And let me put a link to that too. Second Life is a second home to me and thousands of others. And Tom's work helps illuminate how we all interact with this world and with each other in it. I'm really looking forward to hearing about Tom's experience with teaching in Second Life. I am very honored to present Tom Boellstorff. Tom, take it away.
Thank you so much, Beth. And Beth is someone that I've known and admired for so many years. And so I'm really flattered and thankful that you could introduce me. And thanks for mentioning that earlier research. I should mention that I just received an NSF, what's called a rapid grant, to look at what's happening in Second Life and some other virtual worlds because of COVID. And so anyone here in the room, actually, if you would be interested in talking to me or know people who'd be interested in talking about that, I'm still teaching, as you will hear about in a moment, but in a couple weeks, I'm gonna really start ramping that up. And very interesting stuff is happening here and in other virtual worlds because of the pandemic. And I really want to try and get a handle on what those changes are and what lessons we can learn from them. So for those of you in Zoom, I'm going to step back for a moment so you can see the space that we're in. This is inside of the virtual world Second Life. This is part of Anteater Island. You're going to learn more about it in a moment. And you can see a bunch of people here sitting in the audience. And I'm so thankful that some folks came. So you have a live audience so you can see what's happening. What I'll do for a little bit now is I'm going to zoom up on this screen. I'm actually doing this talk the exact same way that I'm teaching my class. So you're going to get a feel for how that works. So you're going to see a lot more of this island in a few minutes, but first I'm going to sort of explain what is going on here. And with the Zoom ID, some people in Second Life want to get shared. So hopefully people can do that while I'm chatting here. So what I'm going to do today is tell you a little story of how this class, Digital Cultures, came to be, some lessons that I've learned about challenges and benefits of using a virtual world for education. And then I'll show you the island a little bit. And we can also do some Q&A. And the way Second Life works is we can actually do the Q&A while I'm walking. And so we can walk around and I can show you things as we're talking. So to begin with a couple caveats, I am an anthropologist, but I don't specialize in the study of education, which some anthropologists do, but I'm not one of them. So I'm not actually expert in this topic. And before this class, I had actually never taught in Second Life before. And I'm a little embarrassed to give this talk because in this room right now with me, in addition to Beth, are many people from the Virtual World's Best Practices in Education group, which is a group of educators across the world that are just, I can't tell you how amazing the stuff is they do in Second Life around education. If we had more time, I could take you on a tour of some islands that have been developed for education that are just stunning and deserve to be better known. And so I am, just a little ant at the feet of these folks. This is a story of me sort of making it up as I go along because of the pandemic. So this class, Digital Cultures, is a class that I've taught 4 or 5 times in the last decade, but I hadn't taught it for a couple of years. It's about online culture, the internet and society. It has about 40 students, at least one of whom is in the audience today. And it's built around them doing small research projects of 5 to 7 students. So this year, I updated the class. For those of you who are at Irvine, I got a very nice room in the Anteater Learning Pavilion, all set up and ready to go. I was very excited. And then just a couple weeks before the class was supposed to start, the epidemic happened. Like literally, as we know, like 2 weeks. I learned that it would have to be taken online. And as we know, remote learning is not the same thing as online learning. Taking an existing class and trying to fit it online very suddenly is a real lift. One advantage I had was that the class is actually about the internet and society. So the topic actually fit going online. And the other advantage, as Beth had mentioned, is even though I've never taught a class in Second Life before, I've done research in here for 16 years. I've written some books and articles about it. And I sort of know how Second Life works. So I had to punt and very, very quickly see what I could do that maybe would make the class more interesting and fun than if I just did it over Zoom. So very, very briefly, Second Life is a virtual world. And very briefly, what a virtual world is, as you can see here, is a place of human culture on the internet. So it's not the same thing as Zoom or Canvas or Facebook. It's a shared, persistent place. In almost all virtual worlds, people have avatars. And there's a lot of confusion about what virtual worlds are. So 2 things to keep in mind is they are not games, even though they can have games in them. So as Richard Bartle, one of the earliest designers of virtual worlds, says, the Pasadena Rose Bowl is not a game. You can play a game in the Pasadena Rose Bowl, but the Pasadena Rose Bowl is not a game. You could also have a music concert in it or a flea market or something like that. Also, Second Life isn't media, strictly speaking, because it doesn't mediate between places. It is a place. So Second Life actually has an amazing amount of media in it, magazines, newspapers, all kinds of cool stuff. But Second Life indirectly mediates, but it is a place as well. It's also, virtual worlds are not the same thing as virtual reality. And you can see the little Venn diagram I did up here. Virtual reality is about sensory immersion, right? That you put on a headset and you get that 360 kind of experience. But you don't even need the internet to have virtual reality, right? You could do a flight simulator that is VR on a computer that's not even plugged into the internet. Virtual worlds are shared places, like right now. They can be done with VR, and some of them are, but most of them are not. Most of them are using a regular computer screen like this. Many of them, including the earliest ones, were just based on text, but they were still words, right? Worlds. So it's not the same as virtual reality. And as I mentioned, they go back to the late 1980s. There are now thousands of virtual worlds, some of which are really designed around gaming, some of which less so. So Minecraft, Animal Crossing, Fortnite are some that you've probably heard of, World of Warcraft. There's lots and lots of virtual worlds out there, some bigger, some smaller. Second Life is sort of a medium-sized virtual world. It has about 500,000 users, around 50,000 people in Second Life at any one point in time, which is a lot bigger than a lot of societies that anthropologists have studied in the past and at present, by the way. So my idea was, given the sudden crisis, what could I do with a virtual world? Thanks to the School of Social Sciences, I got support to get this island, which is not cheap. To do the 6-month rental, even with the educator discount, was around $750. That's how the company that runs Second Life makes its money. It's basically a metaphor for renting server space, right? One challenge I faced was that because setting this up was so sudden, I knew that I couldn't do it only in Second Life. I had to keep using Zoom because not all the students could maybe use Second Life. And we would be using Canvas, which for those of you in the audience in Second Life is the online course service that Irvine uses. So my idea was, what could the virtual world do? Well, if you come onto this island, you'll see a map I made, and here's the map, and we'll take a look around the island in just a moment. But what I did was I made a lecture hall, the #1, where we're sitting right now. And as you recall, the class has students broken into small groups. There's 6 of them. I gave each group a space where they could hang out and build and do things. Then I created a kind of hangout area in the center of the island just to sort of have fun, you'll see. An office for me as the professor, and then some other fun things. There's a roller coaster, there's bumper cars, there's video games, because our students are, you know, locked up at home, most of them, so why not, right? So there's some fun stuff that you could do when you're hanging around on the island. So what I thought Second Life might be able to do for the class is support synchronous interaction, right? Talking in real time, which you're doing with Zoom as well, but you actually, as I'll mention later, don't have, in my opinion, and from my research, the same kind of Zoom fatigue when you're interacting with people with avatars, right? Also to support the small groups, because they have spaces where they can meet on the island. Give them the chance to build in world, because I'll show you here right in front of me and Beth, one thing about Second Life is that you can build instantaneously in Second Life and collaboratively, and other people can see. So you'll see I just made this box. I could, you know, build instantaneously inside of Second Life. I could change the size of it. I could give it color. I could sit on it and interact with it. And this gives the students some interesting possibilities, right? When they can actually build and do things in world that obviously you can't do with Zoom. And I actually built this entire island through that same procedure. But the students, I gave them the power to build in world. So that was sort of one possibility that I thought we could experiment with the class. And then these opportunities for informal interaction, as I mentioned. So the way the class is run is that lectures take place right here where we're all sitting. They're simulcast in Zoom, just like we're doing right now. And the slides that you see, I make available as PDFs ahead of class in case people can't get into Second Life or have a bad internet connection. Part of the class is that there are course readings, and they need to complete a reading response for that 2.5 hours before class and post it on Canvas. I take little quotes from those things and put them in the PowerPoint so that we can sort of have a discussion around them. And then we'll have breakout time in the class where sometimes for half an hour or more, depends on the class, people will go to their group areas. And I use, if you know what the breakout rooms function is in Zoom, but then physically, so to speak, the students are in different spaces on the island and I can go from place to place and talk to them. And then I have an office where I can talk to people for office hours. So the island is incorporated into every aspect of the class. And actually, the way the course was originally designed was that on the day of the final, there was going to be an open event in the Anteater Learning Pavilion on campus where the students present their projects. They will now be doing that here in Second Life. So on Tuesday of finals week, I think it is, you can come and see the student projects here in Second Life. We're going to have a big fun party group event day since we can't do it on campus for the students to present their research projects. So just to show you some pictures of what it looks like, we're going to look around the island in a little bit, but here's some screenshots. I'm going to zoom in even more. So here I am doing a lecture with a bunch of the students. It's going on in Zoom at the same time. Here's another picture. I think it was in week 2 or week 3. We had class actually by coincidence happened on my birthday. So you'll see some birthday hats have been pulled out and some cupcakes and a happy birthday sign we've put up for me for my birthday. So we had a little fun birthday thing together with our avatars. Here I'm in one of the student areas and the students have built this giant rainbow thing just for the fun of it. So I'm sitting on it with 4 other students having a small group meeting. Next to Jacaranda Lake, this lake that I built that has boats on it where you can just sort of chill out and sail around if you want to. Here's my office, which is close by. We can go look at it in a moment, where I have office hours and sort of other resources and things for students. Here's a picture of me sitting in my office, working away during my office hours, waiting for a student to come. The Anteater Commons area in the center of the island has things like checkers, where the checkers actually move and you can play checkers. So here I am playing checkers. We have backgammon as well. In the background, you can see someone playing a video game. I got that video game from Virtualability. Virtualability has great gaming areas. So this is, Virtualability gets a shout out for giving me this idea of some games for the students to play. Like I said, many other groups in Second Life have done things far more advanced than what I'm doing. So here I am playing, once again, checkers and talking to some students, and way in the distance, you can actually see the lecture hall and the PowerPoint that's on that giant screen in the distance in the island. Here we're watching the film about disability that we mentioned. You can stream YouTube inside a Second Life. So here we are in the Commons area, and that's actually Gentle sitting there in the audience. She was there for the screening. And this is this area in the center of the island where students can hang out. There's a camper, there's a campfire, you know, just some place to have some downtime. And I have caught students hanging out here sometimes in the evenings when I happen to log on. So I'm very happy that the island is getting used that way. Here's a couple pictures from yesterday. So yesterday we had an event where the students had to present their research in progress, and they had 5 minutes to do it. And so if you can see right here, I put some dice in a cage where we would roll the dice to pick which group would go next. I put a gong, see that gong right there, which I would hit. It makes a gong sound after 5 minutes to let them know when their 5 minutes was done. I gave them a little extra time. And this is one of the groups making a presentation. They're doing a research project on Tinder and online swiping and sort of dating apps. I don't have pictures from all 6 of the groups, so I just put a couple up here. So yeah, these are hot off the press just from yesterday. Here's a group that's studying animal horizons and the COVID pandemic. So very interesting topic. And you can see a couple of their avatars standing in front. They're giving a presentation to the class with their own slides. One of the groups wanted to use their own group space for us. So we came here, you can see them standing on either side as 2 of the people. This group is studying TikTok, the video sharing app, and how it's being used for education. And here's a picture of the space. They built this themselves. So they built like this tent and chairs area. So we all moved over here and sat here to watch that presentation that they did. So just some ideas of some of the stuff that we've been doing around on the island. So I'm almost done, and then we'll move on to the Q&A. So some advantages is the way that virtual world interaction can be an alternative to Zoom fatigue. The way in which avatar placement and proximity actually carry social information. So having the avatars move to the small group areas sort of makes real the breakout rooms function in Zoom and really gives them a sense of being in a small group talking together, for instance. Making a shared space for collaboration and creativity, as you saw. In fact, up in the air, I've built building areas, called a skybox that is like a 1/4 mile on the side, and I can show you later. They're doing, some groups are having fun building up there. There are so many amazing other places on Second Life. We've done a few field trips. We actually visited the Virtualability. We visited a couple other places in Second Life, and so there's not a whole lot of time for that, and some students are doing it on their own, but we can do some sort of short field trips. Some disadvantages, Second Life is only usable on a laptop or a desktop. That takes a lot to learn. Most faculty couldn't have built this island in a few days like I did. The program can be a little hard to learn. It takes a lot of computing power and bandwidth. You can play around with the settings to help that somewhat, and the students have done great, but there are a couple of them that because of their computers or their internet access, either cannot get in or get in and it's very, very slow. So once again, that's one reason why I am using Zoom as well. So it's the Second Life is not a course requirement. The audio recording in Second Life is not great, and it also unfortunately doesn't have text transcription. That's another reason why I use Zoom together with UJA to create closed captioned video recordings of every session for people to refer to later. I teach this class as I'm doing this event now, running Second Life through Zoom, and that can create a lot of lag. We're definitely pushing the abilities of the technology here with this experiment. So there have been some drawbacks and lessons learned, although it's been a lot of fun. For future possibilities, it would be interesting to try doing this course only in Second Life. If we could get all the students in and all the recording problems worked out, it would make it less laggy and just technologically easier to do it only in Second Life. There just wasn't enough time to make that happen because of the epidemic once again. It would be fun to have more time to do more field trips and more use of the in-world building functions. There are many other virtual worlds, and we could have tried it with some other virtual worlds as well. But a take-home point for me, I think, is what I was trying to do here is get beyond thinking of remote learning as just compensating for a lack, that there's a hole in the ground and we're filling in the hole in the ground. But is there a way to find a silver lining, you know, to take those lemons and turn them into lemonade, to try and create some new possibilities, even when there was just very little time to do that? And my thanks really go to the students in the class above all, because they've put up with this and been great sports playing around with it. And, you know, it's been a really fun time for us. And I've definitely learned some ideas that I think I could use in the future. So with that, we can move on to some Q&A. And while we're doing the Q&A, what we can do is, people here in the audience, you can just stay here for now, or you can walk around with me on the island. But I'm going to just go walk around a little bit to show some parts of the island to people, and we can do the Q&A at the same time. Actually, for people here in Second Life, if you want to get quickly to where the student areas are, those numbers 1 through 6 that you see here actually have hidden teleporters on them. So the 6 groups in the class have these areas to sit here in the lecture hall, and they have numbers they can click on. Those of you who are watching through Zoom, it's going to slow down a bit now because I'm moving around. So just put up with it. It's going to be choppy, but I really want you to be able to see a couple of the things. Thank you, Val Librarian. Val, I thought having it on the water with some manta rays would be a nice thing. So I'm going to actually just click like on 5 for the moment. And I'm going to go to one of the small group areas just to show people what that looks like very quickly. And just interrupt me now, or someone, if wants to ask me a question, feel free to do so. So this is one of the student group areas that I mentioned, where at the end of class, they'll be building a presentation area. And here you can see that area that I showed you from yesterday. This is group 4's area, where they've been doing a lot of building. But each of the 6 groups has this sort of area where they can build. And I'm going to turn up the draw distance here. It's going to cause things to slow down just a bit, but you'll be able to see in the distance, you can see the roller coaster that I built. It's called Peter's Plunge, for Peter the Anteater.
If I could just break in for a second and
yeah, go right ahead.
Just read you some questions from the Zoom Q&A.
Yeah, please do.
So the first you sort of already addressed, and that's about the number of students who don't have reliable internet, even to use Zoom, and you know, your thoughts on the implications of, you know, leaving those ones out, or how do you kind of deal with the limitations of bandwidth? And then if I could just get a couple of the other ones out. This is from Renee, who asks about how long the Zoom lag has been as I'm sharing the screen. Are there other screen share software that people are using? And then also in your class, Tom, what percentage of students are just in Second Life versus coming in through Zoom?
So, oh, Shyla's here. Hi, Shyla. I'll just keep walking around while we're talking and move around just a little bit so people can see different parts of the island. Okay, wait, let me remember the questions. So before the class started, I actually sent out a Google form to all the students to find out what their internet access was and what challenges they thought they would face. And out of the 39 students, there's only 2 or 3 that really cannot get into Second Life hardly at all. They can a little bit. So I've been lucky actually that I've had better access than I was expecting, because I really had to design the class, like I said, so that this was not required, because for some students, even accessing Zoom can be an issue. So there definitely has to be that flexibility. And that's one reason why I record everything and run it through UJA, is so that people, and also put the slides online as a PDF, so that there's no content that they cannot access through Canvas. Everything in the class can be accessed through Canvas, right? That's very important. Everything in the class can be accessed through Canvas. So that's one way that I, you know, encourage that access. So here's the roller coaster that people can see. I'm actually going to go to the center of the island, to that commons area, which is right over here. So I'm just going to fly over, because it's easier. So people who want to, we can fly over here. And so what was one of the other questions? Oh, what percentage? So it'll often be that I will have like 34 students on Zoom and 25 in Second Life. So sometimes students don't come into Second Life because they just want to listen to the lecture then, or their connection isn't as good, and that works fine. And what's nice about the small group situation is that if some members of the small group can come into Second Life, right, then it works fine. This is the commons area that I was showing people earlier, where we've got places for students to hang out and just have some social time. So yeah, that was part of the you know, doing the class suddenly, is that I did not want to make it required, and in a sense, even Zoom isn't required, because everything is accessible via Canvas.
Can I just ask something?
Yeah.
The roller coaster, was that created by the students?
No, I bought the roller coaster myself. That I purchased, and I just gave it a name and made it Peter's Plunge. So some of these items are items that you can buy around Second Life. In fact, many of them were ones I already had, because I've been in Second Life for 16 years and I have my own house in Second Life. So some of the furniture and video games and things were things that I already had in Second Life. Because the way Second Life works is people can build stuff and sell it for money, Linden dollars, which are convertible to US dollars, or give it away for free. So a lot of this is stuff that I actually had in my inventory already. I bought a couple things for the class as well, like the roller coaster. And then I built a lot of the stuff as well. Like my professor's house, I built entirely myself.
There are questions, Tom, about the group projects and how can students collaborate if they can't attend the live class. And then also...
can I ask one more time? Maybe I've missed that one. The students, are they anthropology students?
So the students are undergrads at UCI. They are a mix. They're from computer science, sociology, anthropology. They're a real mix from not just the social sciences, but really from across campus, which has been really fun. In terms of the group projects, when they're doing their group projects, they're often just texting or emailing each other. They're doing these independent projects, and as none of the independent projects are actually in Second Life, right? 2 of the groups are studying dating apps like Tinder. One is doing work in League of Legends. One is doing Animal Crossing. One is doing TikTok, and one is doing Instagram and fashion influencers on Instagram. So to do that research, they're on Instagram, they're emailing each other, they are using Google Docs to collaborate in many cases. And so they came into Second Life to do the presentations about their research, but they're not actually using Second Life for the research projects. If a group had wanted to do something in Second Life, I totally would have supported that, but none of them did, and that makes sense because it was new to them. So there are 2 groups that are doing virtual world kinds of environments, right? The Animal Crossing and League of Legends, but the other 4 groups are not. So it hasn't really presented a problem in that sense, because once again, due to the lack of time to get this going, it had to be a both and kind of situation where the virtual world was not required for the class, you know.
And question, why wasn't SL on the list when they meet in SL? It sounds a little bit strange.
Why was it not on the list for research projects? If that's what you meant, I don't think it's not really strange at all, because part of the challenge of this class, even when I've taught it in the past, and those of you listening who are Irvine faculty will understand, we are on a 10-week quarter system. And 10 weeks goes by very fast, much faster than a semester. And there are things that I really like about that. A real challenge about the quarter system is allowing students to have the experience of research. And I really, because we're a research university, I really love for the students to be able to have a chance to do research. And so this class is designed around research projects, but they really had to decide what they were going to do by like week 3. There just isn't time to familiarize themselves with Second Life to the degree that they might do a research project in it. There are some that are now interested in maybe doing something in Second Life in the future, now that we're in week 8, but I did not allow them to wait this long to decide. So, so to me, it was not surprising at all that none of them have research projects in Second Life, because they really had to settle on what they were going to do quite early because of the nature of the quarter system, and me really helping them along in terms of research design.
And Tom, Betsy Krause from UMass is here and says, hello, this is terrific, and
Hi.
wants to actually hear what the group project assignment was.
So the group project assignment, I don't have it right in front of me, but the group project assignment was to do some research about something about digital culture, something about online digital culture. And and I left it completely open because to me, a really important part of research is that you're excited about it and you've picked it yourself. So it's made very open-ended. And in the past, when I've taught it, often like half of the research projects end up being all online, and about half of the research projects have a physical world component, like, you know, looking at how students use, you know, phones in the library at Irvine or something like that. So this year, all of the projects had to be online, but that's not that hard actually for the topic of this class. And beyond that, I purposely left it very open-ended. And I actually told them explicitly, if you want to do something related to COVID and the pandemic, I will totally support that. If you do not, I will also totally support that. And none of the 6 groups wanted to study COVID. Some of them are mentioning it indirectly in their research, but it's interesting, they sort of wanted to sort of get away from that. Hey, thank you, LV. A couple of the Second Life people have to go. I'm sorry about that. And Beth, if you just type the questions into Zoom, Bill will help coordinate them so that I see them.
Where do I type them?
You can type like I'm doing right now, where it says all panelists. It should on the Zoom chat if you open the chat. Or if you put it in a Second Life chat, I'll watch for it. There are many amazing Second Life educators here in the room right now.
May I ask another question?
Let me get one from Shyla, and then I'll get that second one. So Shyla just asked, do you think this virtual aspect of the class will continue? So, you know, this class ends in 3 weeks, but I'm supposed to teach it next year in our winter quarter, which runs January through March. And that is a damn interesting question. And it depends on where the pandemic is and where I'm at. But it's really been a fun twist. And I would like to try to do it again now that I have the experience. And it just so happens that I by coincidence, I'm signed up to teach it again next year. Sometimes I get to teach it 2 years in a row, sometimes I don't. This time around I do. And so we'll see where we're at. But if possible, I think I would like to do that, because, you know, I don't know if this will be beyond COVID by that point. But it really has been an interesting experiment. So I'll let you know. And then I'm sorry, I think there was another question. We've got several people on the swings here. That's lovely. Here we can sit by the campfire too.
Well, Tom, I can ask you a couple from the Zoom
Sure.
that are really just about how Second Life works. So Christina asks, do you only hear people who are near you when you're in Second Life, and how do you make a group announcement? And then Caroline asks, what are like the etiquette issues or guidelines that you needed to establish at the outset of class, similar to how some folks have had to have a crash course in etiquette for Zoom?
So even though Second Life doesn't have great recording, it has great text and voice chat capabilities. The big issue is around disability, that it doesn't have automatic text to speech and speech to text. If you're chatting, like you hear the typing sound people are doing, you'll only see that if you're within 20 virtual meters of other people. There's also a way to shout and whisper, and then there's a way to send text island-wide. And it works similarly with voice. And so that has not been a problem. And one thing that often happens in these kinds of talks, sort of like with Zoom, is that students or me can talk and other students can text to ask questions. So that part has worked fine. In terms of etiquette, I didn't do a whole lot of planning around that. I mean, I sort of showed people what to do and I told them keep it PG-13. And you know, Christina, who's here, one of the students, the students have been great. They've been, I haven't had to do any sort of intervention or things that way. It was more about sort of getting them to know it. And Heike was asking about, are they spending time, you know, doing the social stuff? And not as much as I would hope. They're doing some, but not a whole lot. And part of it's just that they're really busy. And some of it's Second Life is hard for them to use. And they have other kinds of online things to do. So yeah, that was an experiment. So it is getting used somewhat, but not massively. But I'm fine with that. This really was a, you know, an experiment. Bill, are there other questions?
So there's one.
Oh, yeah.
There's one from Sasha. I can't quite parse it. So maybe Sasha, you can help out if I don't quite get it right. But Sasha says, all these environments you and your students have built out are interesting. Their net purpose is to get humans to come together and interact remotely in a way that they feel comfortable. You're specifically doing it under the umbrella of your learning environment, which means more time spent on the class topic. And then the question is, just through an asynchronous content experience? Question mark.
No,
I think Sasha is asking like what's synchronous, what's asynchronous, and how does that work?
So synchronous is like what we're doing right now when we're in real time talking. But there are things that are asynchronous in Second Life. Like if you build something and you leave it, then it's there later, right? Like what people build that way. But a lot of the asynchronous stuff in the class also happens through our Canvas website, because I can make announcements to the class. The syllabus is there. A lot of that stuff I don't have on the island because, once again, the home base in a sense is Canvas. It had to be. So we use Second Life for synchronous small group and class meetings, and we use it asynchronous for building things that are then left for other people to see if they so choose. So we're using it mostly for the synchronous side of things, and then using Canvas for the asynchronous side is what I've ended up doing.
And there's a question here from Cheyenne, like what's been the students' reaction? Do you have a sense of how students have felt taking the course in this format compared to other online courses? Have they found it more fulfilling? What feedback are you getting?
Hey, Christina, you want to comment on that? Hi.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Hello?
Wait, hold on.
Hi.
So I'm actually one of the more special cases because I'm located in Seoul right now. And it's been really hard for me to feel more connected with the UCI community. And I've been having to deal with a lot of stress lately because I have to take synchronous classes that would be at like 3 a.m. in the morning in Korea time. But taking classes through Second Life has been a little bit of a stress reliever because sure, I'm consuming scholarly material, but I also feel like I am also in some aspect playing a game and not really in a traditional stiff classroom setting. And I've also been able to talk to my friends verbally through Second Life verbal chat. So that has been all very good.
Thanks. So yeah, there's a, and Christine, we have a student, Christine is in Korea. We also have a student in China. You know, they've both been doing great stuff. So when we had our class presentations yesterday, the student in China actually recorded her comments, you know, as an audio file and sent them to me to play for everyone, because it's from her connection. She can be in Second Life a little bit, but it would just have been too laggy. So we worked around that. And so she still got to participate that way. So the final presentations for the class, if you want to come back into Second Life, just give me a moment here. It will be Tuesday, June 9th at 4 p.m. So Tuesday, June 9th at 4 p.m. California time, the final presentations will be around here on the island, and we're doing that, you know, we'll put like little poster boards up, or if people want to make, some of the students will make sort of immersive experiences. California time is Second Life time. Well, the California time is the Greenwich Mean Time of virtual worlds, as one of my friends says. Yes, we can send out a reminder, because I would love for people to come just to support the students too, because I want them to get a little bit of feeling that they get to share what they've done with people, and they'll put up websites and stuff, but we really had our hopes up about having a presentation on campus. For those of you in social sciences, we had 1321 reserved, the big room on the ground floor, and all set up. It was going to be really fun, and that's not happening. And so here's a fun space where we're going to, you know, do that, and even do some stuff we couldn't do in that room. And so please feel free to come and see. They've done great research already, and they still have 3 weeks left to go. I'm really impressed with it. And so I highly encourage you to come and you know, show our love for the students. And they're really, you know, I'm learning about TikTok from them. I'm learning about these dating apps. It's, you know, I learn something every time I teach this class, so much. And that's, you know, certainly the case now.
You know, there's a question that was emailed ahead of time from Larissa, and it might actually be one that, that Beth could address too. And the question is, my main wish is for an enhancement in the ability of educators, sim designers, and content creators to build an alliance. What actions are currently underway in virtual worlds to meet this goal? And then there's other questions about, like, is there funding available for things like that? And, you know, what about also threshold languages, other languages? But the question really is about bringing together educators, sim designers, and content creators in virtual worlds for educational purposes.
So I'm going to turn off my mic, and Beth and several other people sitting here are so knowledgeable about that. I think let's have them talk.
What was the question? What was the question?
The question is basically about enhancing the ability of educators, sim designers, and content creators to build an alliance in virtual worlds to you know, enhance educational activities in virtual worlds. And are there any things going on in that domain? And I think that some of the organizations that you're affiliated with, Beth, is probably exactly the place for people to go, right?
Yes, there are a lot of different groups. Hang on, I'm getting a bad echo, and it's hard. Hang on, I'm getting a bad echo, and it's hard for me to think. There are a lot of different groups. That don't necessarily talk to each other and have different groups of people in them. So having some kind of unified notification system is something that's been discussed but not really figured out. I lost track of what I'm saying. Somebody else talk, please.
Tom, why don't you jump in there if you could?
Yeah, or does anyone, if someone, Bill, if someone could put the email in the text chat, I could cut and paste it into Second Life so the other people could see. But, you know, there has been a lot of collaboration between educators and Second Life on a volunteer basis, basically, and then a few examples of people doing, you know, really interesting work. In fact, a friend of mine, Gentle, is posting some interesting examples of that right now. So there's not sort of a unified thing out there, but there are a bunch of people all around the world obviously doing experiments with using virtual worlds for education, and especially now in COVID era, there's, you know, a lot of opportunity, I think, to think about that. And I just had a quick question. I see, would I do more research here? Well, I actually am, because of this NSF grant. I'm probably going to do research here in Animal Crossing and Fortnite on how COVID is shaping things with all these new people coming in now to these online spaces. So it's a really, there's a lot going on right now that we want to try and understand, because the basic point is that what we call social distancing is actually obviously physical distancing, as many people have pointed out, that there's actually new kinds of social intimacy that are being created through, paradoxically, what's being called social physical distancing or distancing. And so there's a real need to understand what the role of this online interaction is, once again, that gets beyond just seeing it as a second best kind of situation. So as I've said, people who know me have heard me say this 500 times, you know, we really want to get away from talking about the physical world as the real world, like, you know, in real life, because it's empirically incorrect. If you study German online here in Second Life, you could go to Berlin and speak it. If you make a friend online, that friend is real. And it's also a dangerous conflation in the other direction, because it also, that way of talking assumes that the physical world is real, the real world. And for those of us in California, where Hollywood is located, and we also got Halloween and role playing, depending on your definition of the real, to assume that everything physical is real is equally problematic. And so this is an opportunity for us to think about how online sociality is a culture or a set of cultures that we can better understand and work with, that is just as real as what is in the physical world. So you can have gaming and role play and that kind of thing here, but you can have that in the physical world. And as Christine mentioned, you know, my student who's here taking the class, there's a way in which you can use a virtual world as a space of play. And obviously I designed this island with a roller coaster and with the campfire here where we're sitting at and other stuff, precisely with that in mind. I did not, on purpose, I did not try and make a replica of the Irvine campus. I could have done that. I could have made a replica of the social and behavioral sciences building, but I purposely chose not to do that, precisely to give it more of a playful flavor as part of the educational experience.
Great, you know, we're just about coming up to the limit of our time here. I know that there's a number of other questions, but we'll be saving those, and Tom can get back to people individually with some answers. And again, this is all going to be up on the School of Social Sciences website later on today or tomorrow. Let me just take a moment to thank Tom very much for the presentation, and to thank Beth as well for helping moderate the folks who are in Second Life. I also want to thank everyone for coming this afternoon, both in Zoom and in Second Life. I see that there's been an active chat going on in Second Life that I haven't been able to track, but hopefully the folks there are getting their questions addressed and so forth. I'd also like to thank and acknowledge Andy Hill and Social Sciences Computing Services for making our webinars and our Zeries go off without a hitch. Thank you so much, Andy and his whole team. We will continue to do these sorts of events in the School of Social Sciences here at UCI, and you are all invited. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, Beth. And thank you all again for coming.